My name is Natalie Mercer, 28 years old, a stylist living in Boston. In 3 weeks, I'm supposed to walk down the aisle and finally start a life of my own with Ethan Brooks. If you've ever felt family drama threatening to steal your joy, stick around. This is my story. And before I dive in, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this channel. Because sometimes, family revenge isn't a fantasy, it's survival. I pushed open the bedroom door that night, expecting nothing more dramatic than collapsing onto my bed after a 12-hour day at the studio. Instead, my heart nearly stopped. There, framed by the full-length mirror near the window, stood my younger sister, Vanessa. She was spinning slowly, admiring her reflection like she'd been rehearsing for an audience. Draped over her body was not just any dress, but my ivory satin reception gown, the one I had hunted for over 3 months, the one that had made Ethan's eyes shine when I showed him the designer sketch. And dangling from her ears, glittering under the warm lamplight, were Grandma Evelyn's diamond earrings. Heirlooms, promises, the only family jewels that had ever truly felt like they belonged to me. "What the hell are you doing?" My voice came out strangled, caught between disbelief and fury. Vanessa turned towards me with a practiced smile, her phone angled perfectly in her hand. The red glow of live confirmed she wasn't just posing, she was streaming. "Just giving my followers a sneak peek," she said, tilting her head so the earrings scattered prisms across the room. "Trying on my sister's gown. What do you guys think? Do I look bridal enough?" I froze, not because of her words, but because I could already see the hearts and comments flying across her screen. "She looks amazing. Wait, is she getting married too? Double wedding?" "Turn it off, Vanessa," I snapped, stepping closer. "Now." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that said she believed she held the upper hand. "Relax, Nat. Mom always says I look stunning in white. Honestly, it would be a crime not to show this off. Don't worry, you'll have your moment in your big gown." Her casual cruelty stung. I reached for the phone, but she twisted away, satin rippling around her legs. "Stop acting crazy," she said louder, clearly for the benefit of the livestream. "You should be proud your little sister looks this good in your dress." My throat burned. I pictured the endless times she'd borrowed and destroyed my things, shoes, bags, sweaters, and every time Mom and Dad had dismissed it with the same words, "She's your sister. Family comes first." "Take it off," I said firmly, steadying my breath. Vanessa's smile faltered, then hardened. "Or what? You'll cancel your wedding?" "Please, you'd never risk losing Ethan over something so small." She yanked at the zipper, not to remove it carefully, but to prove how little she cared. The sound of satin stretching made my stomach flip. "Don't you dare rip it!" I lunged forward, grabbing her wrist before she could pull harder. The phone slipped from her hand, hitting the rug with a dull thud, the live stream still running sideways. For a split second, our reflections clashed in the mirror. Me, flushed and desperate. Her, smirking, eyes glittering with challenge. "Give me the earrings too," I demanded, holding her gaze. "Oh, these?" She unclasped them with deliberate slowness, then dropped them into my palm with a force meant to bruise. "Careful, Nat. Grandma might change her mind when she sees how selfish you really are." I closed my fist around the cold diamonds, my chest heaving. Behind us, a floorboard creaked. I turned toward the door to see my parents lingering in the hallway, their faces caught between discomfort and approval of Vanessa's antics. Elaine, my mother, tried her soothing voice. "Honey, can't you just share? You'll still have the main gown. Let your sister feel special too." Dad added with a dismissive wave, "She's always looked beautiful in white." The betrayal hit like a slap. For 27 years, I had swallowed my objections, told myself peace was worth the price of silence. But in that moment, watching my parents stand behind Vanessa while she flaunted my future, something inside me shifted. I straightened my shoulders, my voice clear. "Not this time." The live stream ends. The dress comes off. The earrings go back in their box. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush the air. Vanessa blinked, startled not by my words but by the finality in them. "You're serious?" she scoffed, trying to laugh, but her laughter rang hollow. For once in my life, I whispered, I am. The next morning, I woke with the taste of iron in my mouth, the kind that comes after you've clenched your jaw all night. My phone buzzed against the nightstand, notifications stacking so fast they blurred into a constant vibration. When I finally picked it up, the shock wasn't that Vanessa had kept our fight online, it was that my parents had joined in. Pinned at the top of my feed was a Facebook post from my mother Elaine, a smiling photo of her, Dad, and Vanessa at last night's family dinner, captioned, "So proud to announce our daughters will be sharing their wedding day, a true family celebration, 2 brides, 1 unforgettable ceremony, #double the bride, #sister goals." My breath caught. There was no mention of me agreeing. No tag, just Vanessa, radiant in white, leaning into my mother's shoulder like she'd already won. The comments beneath made my chest tighten. What a beautiful idea. So modern, so European. Can't wait to see both girls glowing on stage. Ethan padded out of the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. He froze when he saw my face. What happened? I shoved the screen toward him. They've gone public, before even asking me. He scanned the post, jaw tightening. Natalie, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is a takeover. Before I could respond, another buzz, a group text from my cousins lit up the screen. OMG, Nat, didn't know you were cool with sharing. That's so sweet of you. Vanessa told us you wanted her to shine too. You're such a generous sister. Generous? My hands shook. Vanessa had spun the narrative overnight, and now I was the selfish one if I resisted. That evening, we drove out to my parents' house in the suburbs, hoping face-to-face would be different. I rehearsed calm words in my head. This is my wedding. I need boundaries. The front door opened to the hum of voices. Inside, the living room was packed. Relatives, neighbors, even a few family friends. Balloons in soft blush and ivory floated by the ceiling. On the mantel, a banner read, "Double the brides, double the love." I nearly stumbled. What is this? Elaine swept toward me, arms open. Surprise! An engagement party for both of you. Both? The word clanged in my head like a bell. Vanessa appeared at her side, glowing in a cream dress, phone in hand as she narrated to her followers. Guys, she's here! My amazing sister who agreed to share her special day with me. Isn't this the best news? Every head in the room turned toward me, waiting for confirmation. Heat crawled up my neck. I never agreed to this, I said, each syllable sharp. A ripple of unease spread through the room. My father's smile tightened. Natalie, don't be dramatic. This is a family decision. We've already told everyone. It would be embarrassing to back out now. Embarrassing for them. Ethan stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, a silent anchor. This isn't a family decision, he said firmly. It's Natalie's wedding. Gasps. Aunts exchanged looks. One muttered, "Selfish, just like we heard." Vanessa's eyes glinted, triumphant. She raised her phone higher, capturing the tension. See? This is what I deal with. I just wanted to be part of her happiness, and she's shutting me out. I wanted to scream, to tear down the banner, to demand they all leave, but my voice came out low, trembling. You've turned my wedding into a spectacle, into your story. And none of you asked me. For the first time that night, silence fell. No one knew whether to clap or to condemn. Ethan tugged me gently toward the door. We're leaving, he whispered. As we stepped outside into the cool night, my phone buzzed again. This time, a notification of a trending hashtag. #double the bride was climbing. And somehow, I was the villain in a story that was supposed to be mine. By the next morning, the storm had broken wide open. I sat at my kitchen table in Boston, staring at the phone vibrating nonstop across the wood like it wanted to leap away from me. Every time I silenced one call, another popped up. Cousins, distant relatives, even colleagues from the studio. The hashtags had taken on a life of their own. #double the bride. #sister goals. Some stranger even created a meme comparing Vanessa and me, captioned, "Which sister wore it better?" I scrolled, shame heating my skin as though the entire city was pointing. Ethan slid a mug of coffee in front of me and leaned against the counter. His eyes were tired. Nat, you can't keep reading all of this. I can't look away, I admitted, my voice cracking. They've turned me into the villain. I'm selfish for wanting my own wedding? Since when? Before he could answer, the phone lit again. This time it was my Aunt Carol, who hadn't called in years. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Sweetheart, she said without greeting, her tone already heavy with judgment. Your mother tells me you're refusing to let Vanessa be part of the ceremony. Do you realize how cold that sounds? She's been through so much since her breakup. I pressed my fingers to my temple. Aunt Carol, she's hijacking my wedding. This isn't about her breakup. It's about boundaries. Boundaries, she repeated, as though I'd spoken a foreign word. Family doesn't have boundaries. Family sacrifices. You should remember that. The line clicked dead before I could reply. I set the phone down harder than I meant to. They don't even want to hear my side, I whispered. Ethan pulled out the chair beside me. Then stop trying to convince them. You owe them nothing. I wanted to believe him, but then another buzz. A text from my boss, Diana. Saw the news piece about your sister ceremony. Keep this drama away from clients. Consider this a warning. My chest constricted. Now it wasn't just family. My career, the thing I had built with sweat and stolen hours, was suddenly collateral damage in Vanessa's game. The apartment felt smaller by the second, the walls pressing in. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside, walking aimlessly until I found myself at the Charles River, the cold air stinging my cheeks. I dialed Sophie, my best friend and maid of honor. She picked up on the second ring. Tell me you're not reading the comments. I can't escape them, I said, tears threatening. Even at work people whisper. They think I'm cruel for not sharing. Sophie's voice sharpened. Cruel? Natalie, you've given up your shoes, your clothes, your peace of mind for 27 years, and now they want your wedding too? No. This isn't cruelty. It's survival. Her words steadied me, even as my phone buzzed again. Vanessa this time. A text flashed. Can you at least pretend to be excited for both of us? It's embarrassing when you sulk. Don't ruin this for the family. My hands trembled around the screen. Pretend? Always pretend. Pretend I wasn't hurt. Pretend I wasn't robbed. Pretend this didn't matter. I looked out across the water, the skyline hazy under winter light, and knew something had to change. The pressure was crushing, and if I didn't push back soon, there'd be nothing left of me to save. When Sophie hung up, her words still echoing in my ears, I thought I had reached my limit. But the next blow wasn't emotional. It was financial. That Friday afternoon, Ethan and I sat together in the living room, reviewing the final invoices we had planned to split with my parents. We had agreed months ago that they would cover half the wedding costs as a show of support. But when I refreshed the email thread with the bakery, a red banner appeared. Order canceled. Payment reversed. My stomach dropped. No. I clicked frantically. The buttercream cake with lavender filling, the one Ethan and I had argued over for weeks, was gone. What happened? Ethan leaned closer. I scrolled down to the message from the bakery owner. Dear Ms. Mercer, your parents contacted us directly and requested to withdraw payment. They explained there's been a change in plans and that the family will be moving forward with a different arrangement. I covered my mouth with my hand. They canceled it behind my back. Ethan's jaw tightened. They're not even hiding it anymore. Before the shock could settle, another notification pinged, this time from the sound company. I opened it to find the same story. Contract voided. Payment declined by Richard and Elaine Mercer, 2 vendors in less than an hour. My parents weren't just pressuring me, they were dismantling my wedding piece by piece. I called my mother immediately. She picked up on the second ring, her voice sugar-sweet. Honey, I was about to call you. We thought the chocolate strawberry cake would be more festive for 2 brides. Don't worry, we've taken care of it. My throat burned. You canceled our order without telling me? And the sound system? It's all for the best, she said breezily. These things are expensive, Natalie. We're only being practical, and Vanessa deserves something beautiful, too. Practical? My voice cracked. You're not being practical, you're sabotaging me. Dad's voice entered from the background, low but firm. If you're not going to be reasonable, Natalie, we'll have to manage the arrangements ourselves. After all, we're paying. I gripped the phone tighter. Then don't pay. I'll figure it out. A pause. Then Mom sighed, the sound of a martyr. You've changed, sweetheart. This attitude isn't you. Vanessa just needs this right now. Why can't you share? What's so wrong with celebrating both daughters? I ended the call before I screamed something I couldn't take back. Ethan was watching me, eyes dark with anger. They're trying to choke you into submission. If they hold the money, they think they hold the power. He was right, and as much as my chest ached, something sharper bloomed beneath it. Clarity. Later that night, I logged into our shared vendor accounts. While Ethan paced, I dug through email archives. Buried in the threads were messages from my mother to the coordinator at the venue. Please ensure 2 bridal suites are prepared. Adjust lighting so both daughters are highlighted equally. Invoice will be handled by us. Do not bother Natalie with details. I stared at the words until they blurred. Not just interference, manipulation. I forwarded the entire thread to Sophie with a short note. Keep this. We may need proof. She called back within minutes. Nat, this is more than overstepping. This is control. You can't let them dictate this anymore. You'll have to take the reins completely. Her words both terrified and emboldened me. I had never imagined cutting my parents out of the wedding finances. But staring at the cancellations and the smug tone of those emails, I realized there was no other choice. I looked at Ethan, who had stopped pacing, his hand resting on the back of the couch. If we're going to save this wedding, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days, we have to do it without them. He nodded. Then that's exactly what we'll do. The decision settled heavy but certain in my chest. For the first time, I was prepared to pay the price of freedom. The Monday after my parents pulled their financial stunt, I tried to bury myself in work. Styling had always been my refuge, the one place where my instincts, not my family, dictated the outcome. That morning, the studio buzzed with anticipation. Valerie Torres, a lifestyle influencer with nearly 2 million followers, was coming in for a fitting. Landing her as a client could be the step that propelled my career out of Boston boutiques and into national campaigns. I laid everything out carefully. A silk jumpsuit, 2 custom blazers, a pair of heels sourced from a designer in New York. Every detail mattered. I checked the rack twice, then again, because my nerves hummed like electricity. Big day? Sophie texted when I sent her a photo of the setup. Huge, I replied. Can't afford mistakes. By 10 o'clock, Valerie swept into the studio with her assistant, camera already rolling for her behind-the-scenes vlog. Natalie, I've heard so much about you, she said, air-kissing both cheeks. I'm counting on you to give me something fresh. My pulse steadied. This was my zone. I've curated a few looks I think you'll love. As I guided her toward the fitting area, the door behind us swung open again. My stomach clenched. Vanessa. She strolled in, latte in hand, as if she belonged. What are you doing here? I hissed under my breath. She grinned, lowering her sunglasses. Supporting my sister, of course. Don't be so uptight. Valerie raised her brows. Is this your sister? Oh, she's gorgeous. Vanessa beamed, soaking in the attention. I dabble in fashion myself. Before I could push her out, Valerie was already ushered into the dressing room. I tried to focus, but I could hear Vanessa's voice in the background, chatting loudly with the assistant, dropping hints about her upcoming role as co-bride. The first look went smoothly. Valerie emerged in the silk jumpsuit, twirling for the camera. I adjusted the hem, pinned the waist, and felt a spark of pride. Then, just as I was fastening the blazer, a sharp gasp echoed. Wine. Red liquid spread across the ivory silk sleeve like blood blooming in water. Vanessa stood frozen, holding the empty glass. Oh my God, she said. Too sweet, too rehearsed. I was just reaching for my bag. Total accident. My heart stopped. Valerie stared at the stain, her face unreadable. I'll fix this, I stammered, grabbing napkins, dabbing uselessly at the silk. I'll cover the cost, of course. Valerie's assistant murmured something into her ear. Valerie's smile tightened. These things happen, she said, but her tone had cooled. When she disappeared into the dressing room to change, I spun on Vanessa. How could you? Do you have any idea what you've done? She shrugged, eyes gleaming. Relax. She's not going to fire you over one little spill. Besides, accidents happen. The words mirrored my parents' mantra, the one they'd used to excuse her for years. Heat surged up my chest. Get out, I whispered, shaking. Before I throw you out. Valerie emerged again, already gathering her things. Thank you for your time, Natalie. I'll have my assistant follow up. The finality in her tone hollowed me out. This wasn't just a fitting gone wrong, it was a black mark that could echo through every client she spoke to. The door closed behind her, and silence fell heavy. My knees threatened to buckle. Vanessa slipped on her sunglasses, smirking. Maybe if you weren't so selfish about the wedding, things like this wouldn't happen. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Rage coiled inside me so tightly I thought I'd snap. This wasn't just about a dress or a cake anymore. Vanessa had crossed into my career, my identity. As she sauntered out, I gripped the ruined silk, the red stains stark against my hands. For the first time in my life, the truth crystallized with brutal clarity. If I didn't draw the line now, there would be nothing left of me to defend. I didn't sleep that night. The ruined silk still sat on my desk like a wound that wouldn't close. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Valerie's tightened smile, Vanessa's smirk, my parents' dismissive voices. By sunrise, exhaustion had hardened into something sharper, resolve. I brewed coffee, sat at my laptop, and opened the folder I'd been too scared to compile before. Screenshots, photos, emails, years of accidents that had never been accidents. My designer heels scuffed and returned without apology. The cashmere sweater stretched beyond recognition. The vintage purse stained with makeup. The email from the venue where my mother requested 2 bridal suites. And now the silk jumpsuit, ruined in front of a client I might never win back. I stared at the blank caption box, my pulse hammering. For so long, I'd been afraid of being the dramatic daughter, the difficult sister. But silence had only fed their version of the story. Not anymore, I whispered. Ethan walked in, hair tousled, concern etched across his face. Nat, what are you doing? Taking back my voice, I said, not looking up. They've painted me as selfish. It's time people saw the truth. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. If you're sure, then do it. I'll stand with you. That was all I needed. I uploaded the photos one by one, weaving them into a gallery. The before and after shots of my things destroyed, the emails showing my parents' manipulation, and finally a photo I had snapped when Vanessa live-streamed in my dress. Her grin, her phone tilted toward the mirror, Grandma's diamonds dangling from her ears. The caption poured out of me like fire. A bride deserves respect. For years, I've been asked to share while my things, my career, and now my wedding were taken from me. My sister tried on my after-party dress without permission. My parents canceled vendors behind my back. And just yesterday, my client fitting was sabotaged. Family should be about love and support, not control and entitlement. Bride not bullied. Enough is enough. My finger hovered over post for one breathless second, then pressed. The whoosh of it going live felt like exhaling after holding my breath for decades. At first, silence. Then the notifications exploded. Comments, shares, direct messages. Friends from college chimed in. We always saw how she treated you. Finally, you're speaking out. Former clients. I had no idea you went through this. Standing with you. Strangers. This is why boundaries matter. Proud of you. By noon, Had Bride Not Bullied was trending in Boston. By evening, it was national. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, but this time I didn't feel dread. I felt vindication. Of course, not everyone sided with me. Some comments called me cruel, ungrateful, heartless. But the tide had shifted. The narrative wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine. Around 6, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Then Vanessa, 3 times in a row. I ignored them all. When I finally checked the voicemails, my mother's voice dripped with outrage. "Natalie, how dare you air private family matters? Do you know how humiliated we are? Delete that post immediately." Vanessa's message was sharper, angrier. "Take it down, Nat. You think people will still love you once they see the whole picture? Don't forget, I have stories too." I laughed bitterly, setting the phone face down. For once, their threat sounded small compared to the roar of strangers who finally understood. That night, Sophie showed up at my apartment with Thai takeout and a notebook. "We need to document everything," she said, flipping to a fresh page. "If they keep pushing, we'll need receipts." I looked at her, at Ethan, at the pile of evidence now public for the world to see. The pressure hadn't vanished, but it no longer pressed me down. It pushed me forward. For 28 years, they had written the story of who I was. With one post, I had started rewriting it. And I wasn't done yet. The morning after my post went viral, Boston already felt too small, too suffocating. Every cafe I passed seemed to hum with whispers. Every notification reminded me of the chaos I had unleashed. My phone lit up with interview requests, cousins weighing in, even clients asking if I was okay. Ethan saw me pacing near the window, arms wrapped around myself. "You need air, Nat. Not just a walk. Distance. Go see your grandmother. She always grounds you." I resisted at first. Flying across the country when my wedding was 3 weeks away felt reckless. But the truth was, I needed perspective that only Evelyn could give. She had lived through decades of family wars. She knew how these patterns worked. By that evening, I was on a red-eye from Logan to LAX, 5 hours in the dark with my thoughts. I scrolled past hateful comments, then past the supportive ones too, until the screen blurred. Eventually, I just stared out the oval window, Boston lights shrinking until they were swallowed by the black Atlantic. When I landed in Los Angeles, the California sun struck me like a spotlight. Too bright, too honest. A lift carried me east to Pasadena, where Evelyn lived in a modest bungalow with roses climbing the fence. The sight of her front porch nearly undid me. She opened the door before I knocked, leaning on her cane, her eyes sharp as ever. "Natalie." Her voice held both question and answer, as if she already knew. I collapsed into her arms, the scent of lavender and cinnamon wrapping around me like a blanket. "Grandma, it's bad. Worse than I can explain." "Then sit," she said, guiding me inside. The living room was cluttered with books, photographs, and warmth, the opposite of my parents' curated perfection. I sank onto her worn sofa, and the words tumbled out. Vanessa in my dress, the Facebook post, the canceled contracts, the ruined fitting. Evelyn listened without interruption, hands folded, gaze steady. When I finally choked silent, she said softly, "Your mother pulled the same tricks when she was your age." I blinked. "What?" She nodded. "At your Aunt Louise's wedding. Elaine insisted on wearing white, demanded to stand beside her in the photos, even tried to change the flowers to match her bouquet. When Louise protested, your grandfather took your mother's side. They haven't spoken in 30 years. Her words hit me harder than any online comment. It wasn't just Vanessa. This was a cycle, inherited and repeated, generation after generation. "Why didn't anyone stop her?" I whispered. "Because everyone was afraid of conflict," Evelyn said. "They confused keeping peace with surrendering to control. And I let it happen too often." She reached for a folder tucked beneath the coffee table and placed it in my lap. But not this time. Inside were documents. The deed to her house, bank statements, and a trust with my name written plainly as executor and primary beneficiary. My throat tightened. "Grandma, I don't understand." "I've watched your parents let Vanessa take what was yours your entire life. I made sure they can't take everything." Her hand, though wrinkled, was firm on mine. "You've always been the strong one, strong enough to end this pattern." Tears burned my eyes. For once, I didn't feel like a child fighting shadows. I felt like a woman holding proof that my voice mattered. When I left 2 days later, suitcase heavier with legal papers, Evelyn hugged me tight. "Remember, Natalie, this is your wedding. Not theirs, not hers, yours." As the plane lifted off back toward Boston, I held her words close, like armor against the storm waiting at home. By the time my flight touched down in Boston, I was no longer the same woman who had left 2 days earlier. The folder of documents from Evelyn sat in my bag like a hidden sword, proof that my parents couldn't strip everything from me. Still, I knew paper alone wouldn't stop them. They had money, connections, and the audacity to bend reality until people believed them. This time, I needed a team. That evening, Ethan called Marcus Lee, his old college roommate who now ran IT security in New York. 2 hours later, Marcus was in our apartment, laptop open, fingers flying over the keys. "Your family's been meddling in your vendor accounts because you let them handle the logins," he said, shaking his head. "First rule, never give a fox the keys to the henhouse." I flushed. They insisted on helping with deposits. I thought it was trust. "Trust," Marcus muttered, "shouldn't require two-factor authentication, but now it does." He walked me through every account, venue, florist, photographer, and reset them all. New passwords, new security codes. Every time I confirmed a code on my phone, a small piece of me felt reclaimed. When he finished, Marcus leaned back. "From now on, only you and Ethan have access. No exceptions." I nodded, clutching my phone like a lifeline. The next morning, Sophie arrived at my apartment with her leather-bound legal pad. She spread it across the table, flipping to a page filled with bullet points. "I've been documenting everything," she said. "Every cancellation, every interference, every message. If they try to claim their victims, we'll have receipts." Her lawyer's precision steadied me. I wasn't just an emotional bride. I was a woman building a case. Later that day, we met with a new planner, recommended by one of Sophie's colleagues. Tasha's office walls were lined with photos of bold weddings, outdoor ceremonies in the desert, rooftop receptions in New York, celebrations that didn't follow tradition, but redefined it. "So," Tasha said, leaning forward, "tell me what you want, not your family. You." The words settled over me like a revelation. No one had asked me that in weeks. I didn't hesitate. Security. People at the doors who know exactly who's allowed in and who isn't. No surprises. And I want every vendor to know this wedding is mine. Not a family project, not a sister act. Mine. Tasha's eyes gleamed. "I can work with that." By the time we left her office, I felt lighter, like the ground beneath me was finally solid. That night, over takeout cartons and scattered notes, Ethan squeezed my hand. "We've locked them out of the accounts. Sophie has the evidence. Tasha will enforce the plan. For the first time, Nat. We're ahead." I leaned my head on his shoulder, exhaustion tugging at me, but also something else. Calm. For so long, I thought survival meant giving in. Now I know it means drawing the line. The line had been drawn. And for the first time, I believed I had the strength and the allies to hold it. The drive from Boston to Cape Cod took just under 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity. The closer we got to the coastal venue, the tighter my chest became. Through the windshield, I caught glimpses of the ocean, calm and silver under the morning light, mocking me with its serenity. "Breathe," Ethan said, squeezing my hand across the console. "Remember, we're ready this time." I nodded, though my stomach nodded anyway. Security was in place, passwords were locked, contracts signed directly under my name, and yet, I knew my family. They would not arrive quietly. When we pulled into the circular drive, my fear proved right. Through the glass doors of the venue, I saw them, my parents, already in heated conversation with the coordinator. My father gestured with a folded contract as though wielding a weapon, while my mother leaned in, her hands animated, voice sharp. Beside them, in a white gown suspiciously similar to mine, stood Vanessa. The sight nearly knocked the air from my lungs. Lace sleeves, sweetheart neckline, fitted bodice, The design was almost a mirror image of the dress hanging in my bridal suite upstairs, only cheaper, flashier, as if she had demanded a knockoff overnight. Ethan followed my gaze. Unbelievable. Expected, I muttered, pushing open the car door. My heels clicked against the stone pathway like gunfire announcing my arrival. As soon as I stepped inside, the room shifted. My mother's eyes flicked to me, widening for a fraction before narrowing into a brittle smile. Vanessa froze, then recovered quickly, her painted lips curling. "You're early," Dad said flatly, stuffing the contract back into his jacket pocket. "I'm on time," I corrected, scanning the coordinator, whose face was flushed with confusion. "Is there a problem here?" The young woman stammered. They were insisting on changes to the seating and a second bridal suite, but there's nothing in the paperwork about— "Because there is no second bride," I said, my voice carrying farther than I intended. Heads turned. Servers, florists, even a photographer paused mid-step. Vanessa stepped forward, silk swishing. "Don't be cruel, Nat. Everyone knows this was supposed to be our day. The hashtags, the support, people love the idea." "This isn't Instagram, Vanessa," I snapped. "This is my wedding." For a heartbeat, silence hung heavy. Then Dad's voice, deep and commanding. "Natalie, we are your parents. We've paid, we've planned, and we have a say." Something inside me hardened. "You paid, past tense. You canceled contracts behind my back, remember? I've taken care of everything since. This wedding no longer belongs to you. It never belonged to Vanessa." Murmurs rippled across the staff like wind through dry leaves. The truth was out in the open now, not whispered but declared. My mother's hand trembled against her pearls. "You'll regret embarrassing us in front of everyone." I looked at her, then at Vanessa, whose face flushed with fury. "The only regret I have is letting it go this far." Ethan squeezed my shoulder, a solid anchor against the storm. On cue, Marcus appeared from the side hallway, 2 suited guards at his back. "Everything's secure," he said quietly. "Just give the word." I nodded once. "Please escort my family to their seats. They are welcome as guests, not organizers, and if anyone tries to make changes, they are to be removed from staff areas immediately." The guards moved with quiet authority. Dad sputtered, Mom protested, Vanessa hissed my name like a curse. But they were guided toward the designated family section. The coordinator exhaled, shoulders dropping in visible relief. As the doors to the bridal suite closed behind me minutes later, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time, I didn't look like a daughter begging for approval. I looked like a bride taking back her day, and the chaos had only just begun. The bridal suite buzzed with quiet activity, makeup brushes sweeping across my cheeks, pins securing the veil, the soft shuffle of Sophie pacing with her clipboard. For a brief moment, the chaos outside felt far away, muffled by the thick oak door. Then a knock rattled the frame. Too firm to be polite. Sophie's eyes narrowed. "That's not room service," Marcus's voice carried from the hallway. "She insists she has something to say to the bride." I didn't need him to clarify who she was. Before I could respond, Vanessa's voice pierced through the door, honeyed and false. "Nat, please, just give me 5 minutes. It's important." Sophie crossed her arms. "Don't open it." But part of me wanted to face her, to stop hiding. "Let her in," I said quietly. The door swung wide. Vanessa stepped in, flanked by my parents. She wore that knockoff gown like armor, lips painted a defiant red. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears that appeared on cue. "Natalie, darling, we can't let you make this mistake. Imagine how this will look, your own sister excluded, humiliated." Dad added, "Guests are already asking questions. You can still fix this. Let Vanessa walk with you. It's what family does." The gall of it made my pulse spike. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. And family doesn't threaten their own daughter's happiness for a spectacle. Vanessa scoffed. "You think this is about happiness? It's about legacy. Mom and Dad's friends, our entire community, they expect both of us. You're being selfish." Her words cracked something in me. I stood, smoothing the skirt of my gown, and faced her head on. "For 28 years, I let you use that word to silence me. Selfish, dramatic, difficult. And every time I stayed quiet, you took more. My clothes, my career, my peace. But not today. Not this. The air thickened. Sophie's hand brushed my elbow, steadying me, but her gaze never wavered from Vanessa. Mom clasped her pearls. "If you go through with this, Natalie, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. You'll regret alienating us." I laughed, a sharp sound that startled even me. "I regret plenty, Mom. I regret not saying no sooner. I regret giving you the power to think this wedding was yours to control, but I won't regret saving myself." Vanessa's eyes glittered, fury barely masked. "You can't stop me from being seen as a bride. Everyone already believes it." I stepped closer, close enough to see the cheap stitching along her bodice. "Then walk into that chapel in your counterfeit gown. But know this, when the officiant says my name, when the photographer points their lens, when the vows are spoken, it will never be yours, and everyone will see the difference." For the first time, her confidence faltered. Marcus cleared his throat. "That's enough. Time to escort them out." My parents sputtered, Vanessa protested, but the guards were firm. As they were guided back toward the family section, my mother called over her shoulder, "You'll regret this humiliation!" The door clicked shut. Silence. Sophie let out a long breath. "Well," she said, half smiling, "that was theatrical." I sank back into the chair, my reflection staring at me in the mirror, eyes bright, spine straight. My hands trembled, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline. For the first time that day, I believed it. They could scream, they could scheme, they could wear knockoff gowns, but the ceremony, the vows, the future, those were mine. And their intervention had failed. The ceremony itself went off with an almost eerie calm. The officiant's voice echoed under the vaulted beams, her words deliberate. "Today, we gather to witness the marriage of Natalie Mercer and Ethan Brooks. Only them." Each syllable struck like a bell, silencing whispers before they began. By the time Ethan and I walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, my heart was steady. The battle wasn't over, but the war was already tilting in my favor. At the reception hall, strings of lights glittered above tables dressed in ivory and sage. Guests laughed over cocktails, oblivious to the tension simmering at the family table. My parents sat stiff as statues, their smiles carved on for appearance's sake. Beside them, Vanessa sulked in her counterfeit gown, fussing with the neckline as though rearranging it could make her look like the real bride. Dinner passed in a blur of clinking glasses and polite conversation, but I'd been waiting for dessert. When the servers wheeled out the towering wedding cake, 3 tiers of rich chocolate layered with espresso ganache, gasps of delight rippled across the room. It was decadent, unapologetically bold, and very deliberately chosen. Vanessa's expression curdled instantly. "Chocolate?" she whispered loudly enough for half the table to hear. "Who serves chocolate at a wedding? It stains. It's tacky." A few guests exchanged glances, stifling laughter. I raised my glass and said sweetly, "We wanted something unforgettable. Besides, isn't bitterness the perfect contrast to sweetness?" The laughter this time wasn't stifled. Vanessa's face flushed crimson. She pushed her plate away untouched while the rest of the room dug in, humming in approval. It was petty, yes, but God, it was satisfying. Then came the toasts. One by one, friends and family stood to speak, their words warm and genuine. Sophie's toast brought tears to my eyes as she spoke about resilience, about how love thrives when it's chosen freely, not demanded. When it was my turn, I stood with my glass raised high. The room hushed. "I want to thank everyone here who truly supports Ethan and me, who respects our boundaries, who celebrates not just this day, but the journey it took to arrive here." I swept my gaze deliberately across the room, lingering on Grandma Evelyn, on Sophie, on Ethan's parents. Not once did I glance at my own. The message was clear, and the silence at the family table was deafening. A murmur rose from the back, Vanessa pushing back her chair. She began to move toward the DJ booth, determination etched into her features. I saw it coming before anyone else, her desperate last attempt to reclaim attention. But Marcus was faster. He intercepted her smoothly, hand gentle yet firm on her arm. "Sorry, miss. The bride's playlist is locked." His words were calm, almost pleasant, but final. She tried to twist free, voice sharp. "I just want to say a few words." "You've said enough," Marcus replied quietly, steering her back toward her seat. Guests pretended not to watch, but I could feel every eye on the scene. The quiet humiliation hung heavier than any shouted argument. I crossed the dance floor, stopping just in front of Vanessa. Her chest heaved, eyes burning into mine. "Not today," I said softly, my voice steady but cold. "And not ever again." For a fleeting second, something flickered in her gaze. Shock, maybe even realization, but it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by defiance. I returned to the center of the floor, raising my glass once more. The DJ started the music, the first notes of our song filling the air. Ethan pulled me into his arms, and the crowd erupted in applause. As we swayed under the lights, my eyes drifted to Vanessa, still seated, still seething. She had been silenced, not by force, but by boundaries she could no longer cross. It wasn't loud revenge. It was subtle, precise, unforgettable, and it was mine. The reception pulsed with laughter, glasses clinking, music spilling across the hall. But as Ethan spun me into a twirl under the chandelier, I caught sight of my father signaling sharply from the corner of the room. His face was carved with fury, his jaw tight. My mother lingered behind him, clutching a tissue she hadn't even used. Sophie leaned in, whispering, "They're cornering you. Want me to block?" I shook my head. "No. If I don't face them now, I never will." I followed them through a side door into a smaller parlor, dimly lit and lined with antique portraits. As the door closed, the hum of celebration vanished, replaced with a suffocating silence. My father spoke first, voice low but laced with venom. "Do you have any idea what you've done tonight? You've humiliated us in front of every friend, every colleague. They're whispering already." I folded my arms, my veil brushing against my shoulder. "No, Dad. I stopped you from humiliating me. There's a difference." Mom dabbed theatrically at the corners of her dry eyes. "After all we've sacrificed, our money, our reputation, you repay us like this? Treating us like intruders?" I laughed bitterly. "Sacrifice? You canceled my contracts, bribed vendors, tried to replace me in my own wedding. That's not sacrifice, it's sabotage." Her lips trembled, but I saw it now for what it was. Performance. She turned to Dad. "You hear the way she speaks to us? After everything?" Dad stepped forward, his height looming over me, but I didn't flinch. "Natalie," he said through gritted teeth, "you need to understand something. In this family, appearances matter. Control matters. You think you've won today, but if you walk out that door without making this right, you'll regret it. We'll make sure of it." The threat landed like a slap, but instead of shrinking, I felt my spine straighten. For so long I had feared those words: regret, punishment, consequences. Tonight they sounded hollow. "I used to believe that," I said quietly. "That my survival depended on keeping you happy. On giving up pieces of myself so you could smile for your friends. But that ends here." My mother's voice cracked, desperate now. "We're your parents. You owe us respect." I met her gaze, steady. "Respect isn't owed. It's earned. And all you've earned is distance." For the first time, she had no script. Her mouth opened, closed. Silence. Dad's face turned crimson. "If you walk away from us, don't expect us to be there when you need us. Don't expect an inheritance. Don't expect our support." The words should have stung. Instead, I almost smiled. "Funny you should mention that. Grandma Evelyn already made sure I don't need anything from you. I'm not your bargaining chip anymore." Their eyes widened. Shock, maybe even fear. The power they'd held for decades slipped in an instant. I moved to the door, my hand on the knob. For a moment, I looked back, not with longing, but with clarity. "You've been taking pieces of me my whole life. Tonight, I took them back. Enjoy the cake. I picked chocolate because it's the only flavor Vanessa hates. And with that, I opened the door. The sound of music and laughter washed over me, warm and alive. Ethan was waiting by the entrance, his hand outstretched. I slipped mine into his, leaving the parlor and my parents' control behind me. For the first time in years, I felt light, free. 6 months after the wedding, the only sound in my mornings was the quiet hum of wind through the trees. No constant buzzing phone, no surprise knocks from my parents, no sister barging into my space with a latte and an agenda. From the bay window of our new home in Connecticut, I watched orange and gold leaves tumble across the lawn, the Atlantic breeze sharper here than in Boston. Peace had a texture now, like oxygen filling my lungs for the first time. Ethan padded into the living room in his socks, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "You're staring out there like the trees have secrets." "Maybe they do," I said with a smile, taking the cup. "Or maybe I'm just not used to quiet." He settled beside me on the window seat, shoulder pressed against mine. "Quiet suits you." I exhaled, letting his words sink in. He was right. The chaos of Boston, the noise of family drama, it felt like a past life. Here, with distance, I finally had space to breathe. Of course, the phone still rang sometimes. My parents left messages dripping with guilt. My sister posted cryptic captions about betrayal. But their voices no longer carried the same weight. When they called, I decided if and when I would answer. For once, the choice was mine. Grandma Evelyn moved to a senior community just 10 minutes away, and her Buick was a familiar sight in our driveway. She visited often, bringing stories, casseroles, and the calm wisdom I had clung to in Pasadena. One afternoon, she slid a folder across our kitchen table. "You're the executor now," she said simply, her eyes steady. "And the primary beneficiary." Tears blurred the text in front of me. "Grandma, you don't have to do this." Her weathered hand rested over mine. "You saw them for what they are when no one else would. That kind of clarity deserves to be protected." Later that evening, I opened an old photo album she had tucked into the folder. Images of my mother as a girl, always standing in the shadow of her own sister. My grandmother, decades younger, smiling tightly beside her brother who held all the family inheritance. 4 generations of silence, of swallowing words, of yielding ground. Until me. I closed the book with a quiet finality. That legacy ended here. Life wasn't perfect, wounds don't vanish overnight, but it was ours. Ethan and I cooked dinner together without interruption. I launched a small styling studio downtown, where clients came for boundaries as much as fashion. The bride who wouldn't be bullied had become a headline, and though I never sought the label, it followed me. Strangers booked consultations just to say, "I saw what you did, it gave me courage." One crisp evening, Ethan and I sat by the fireplace, the room aglow with warmth. He glanced at me over his glass of wine. "Do you ever miss it? The noise? The mess?" I shook my head slowly. "Not the mess. Maybe the illusion that they cared. But I don't need illusions anymore." He smiled, leaning in to kiss my temple. "Good, 'cause I like this version of you better." So did I. The first snow of winter dusted our Connecticut lawn when the package arrived. It was plain brown, the kind you'd expect from Amazon, but the handwriting on the label made my stomach twist. My mother's looping script, careful, almost ornamental. Ethan found it on the porch. "Do you want me to open it?" he asked gently. I shook my head. "No, if they sent something, I'll face it myself." At the kitchen table, I slit the tape with a knife. Inside lay my childhood diary, its purple cover faded, corners worn from years under my pillow. I hadn't seen it since college. Something slipped from between the pages. A single folded note, written on my mother's stationery. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Perhaps we should have listened, that was all. No apology. No, "I'm sorry." Just 7 words that landed like stones in my chest. Ethan read it over my shoulder. "That's not much." "It's more than I expected," I admitted, running my fingers over the indentation of the pen. For years, they had denied, deflected, excused. This wasn't remorse, but it was acknowledgement, like the first crack in a dam. I flipped through the diary, memories spilling back. At 13, I had written about Vanessa borrowing my sweater and returning it stained. At 16, about Mom siding with her when she wrecked my shoes. At 21, about the senator's daughter whose outfit Vanessa had ruined, and the opportunity I lost because of it. Every page was evidence that I hadn't imagined it, that the erosion of my boundaries had been real, documented by a younger version of me who didn't yet know how to fight back. Evelyn came by later that afternoon. She sipped her tea while I showed her the package. She turned the note over in her hand and snorted softly. "Your mother has always believed that a hint counts as an apology. It doesn't. But it does tell you one thing. She knows you were right." I sat back, staring at the diary on the table. For the first time, the anger didn't burn hot. It smoldered, contained, almost manageable. "Do you think this means they'll change?" I asked. Grandma shook her head. "Change takes more than a note, but you don't need their change to move forward. You've already built your own." Her words settled into me like warmth. That night, I placed the diary on the bookshelf in my studio, not hidden away, but not centered either. A relic of a past I refused to erase, a reminder of why I had chosen differently. The note, I slipped into the back cover. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but a marker that at least once they admitted what they had done. It wasn't the apology I deserved, but it was the acknowledgement I never thought I'd receive. And somehow, that was enough. The scent of rosemary and roasted turkey filled our Connecticut home, wrapping the rooms in warmth. Outside, snowflakes clung to the window panes, but inside, the house glowed with light and laughter. Our dining table, extended with extra leaves, was surrounded not by the family I had been born into, but by the family I had chosen. Sophie arranged a vase of late autumn flowers at the center. Ethan carved the turkey with exaggerated precision, making everyone laugh when he held up the knife like a surgeon about to make the first cut. Grandma Evelyn sat at the head of the table, her eyes bright, her cane resting nearby. Her presence was a quiet anchor, her approval the only one I had ever needed. As we passed dishes, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, fresh rolls, the conversation flowed easily. No accusations, no backhanded comments, no games. Just stories, inside jokes, and the hum of people who genuinely cared for one another. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed in the study. I knew without checking that it was my parents. Grandma caught my glance and asked gently, "Do you need to answer that?" I shook my head. "Tomorrow," I said, returning to the table. "Today is for joy." Glasses were raised as Ethan stood for a toast. To chosen family, to boundaries that protect love instead of breaking it, and to Natalie for teaching us all that saying no can be the bravest yes. My throat tightened as I lifted my glass. Around me, faces smiled with no strings attached, no hidden demands. This was the peace I had fought for. This was home. As I cleared the table later that night, I paused by the window, watching the snow swirl under the porch light. The diary from my childhood sat on the bookshelf in the next room, a reminder of where I had come from, of the years I spent silencing myself so others could shine. But this year had taught me something life-changing. Silence is not the same as peace. Giving in isn't love, and boundaries aren't cruelty, they're survival. I had spent nearly 3 decades shrinking to fit inside the frame of what my family demanded. The moment I finally stood tall, I discovered not only strength, but freedom. Family, I realized, isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about the people who lift you higher instead of weighing you down. And sometimes, it's about finding the courage to walk away so you can finally breathe. To anyone listening who has felt trapped by obligation or crushed under someone else's expectations, remember this: you have the right to draw the line. You have the right to keep what is yours, and you have the right to build a life defined not by control, but by love. If this story resonated with you, please hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need the reminder. And tell me in the comments, what boundaries changed your life?